I bought a property in the mountains as a place to relax. When I arrived, I found my son, his wife, her parents, and her sisters enjoying the place. When he said, "Glad you're here, now we have a cook," I simply nodded and sat down in the living room. Then, I watched his world fall apart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I stood in the doorway of what was supposed to be my sanctuary, my reward for 43 years of burning my hands, my nights, and my youth in kitchens from Paris to Tokyo. The smell hit me first. Not the clean pine and wood smoke I'd imagined during those endless renovation calls, but stale beer, burnt garlic, and something greasy that made my stomach turn. My mountain house, my retirement dream, my hard-earned peace, invaded. The living room looked like a frat house after homecoming. Pizza boxes stacked on my new leather sofa. Wine bottles, my wine bottles, the 2015 Bordeaux I'd been saving, empty and tipped over on the coffee table. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see dishes piled so high in the sink they threatened to topple. Someone had left the refrigerator door hanging open, and I watched condensation drip onto the slate floor I'd personally selected last August. "Mom!" Charlotte appeared from the hallway, her blonde hair in a messy bun, wearing yoga pants and one of Noah's old sweatshirts. Behind her, I could hear children shrieking, a television blaring, and what sounded like someone using power tools in my basement. "Oh my God, you're here!" She rushed forward, not to hug me, but to grab my arm and pull me inside. This is perfect timing. We've been absolutely drowning trying to feed everyone. Noah said you probably wouldn't mind. Mind what? My voice came out flat. I didn't move from the doorway, my overnight bag still in my hand, car keys digging into my palm. "Well, cooking. I mean, that's what you do, right?" She laughed, bright and thoughtless. "We tried, but honestly, nobody can make food like you. And with New Year's Eve tonight, we really wanted something special." I looked past her into my kitchen. My dream kitchen with the 6-burner Viking range I'd fantasized about for decades, the marble countertops I'd saved for, the copper pots hanging from the custom rack. Every surface was covered in debris. Someone had burned something in my cast-iron skillet, the one I'd seasoned for 3 years. A cheap nonstick pan sat on my induction cooktop, with what looked like scrambled eggs welded to its surface. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "Oh, well, Noah got the gate code from when you had him check on the contractors last month. We came up for Christmas, just to see the place, you know, since you were talking about it so much. And then Charlotte's parents wanted to see it, and her sisters, and, well," she gestured vaguely at the chaos. "It's such an amazing house, Mom. You really outdid yourself. My house. That I'd bought with my money, that I'd never invited them to." A man I didn't recognize walked past carrying my good chef's knife, my Misono UX10 Gyuto that cost more than most people's monthly car payment, using it to open a beer bottle. "We thought you'd stay in the city longer," Charlotte continued, oblivious to the way my jaw had tightened. "Noah said you always work through the holidays anyway. I retired in October." Right, but you know how it is. "Once a chef, always a chef." She laughed again, and I wondered how I'd never noticed before how much her laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Anyway, dinner. We were thinking something impressive. Charlotte's dad keeps talking about this beef Wellington he had once, and..." "Where's Noah?" "Basement. He's helping Brian set up the sound system for tonight. We're having a party." She said it like she was announcing a surprise gift. "Nothing huge, just family. Maybe 40 people. 40 people. In my house. On the first night I was supposed to spend here. I walked past her, through the destruction of my living room, past Charlotte's mother asleep on my reading chair with her mouth open, past 2 teenage girls I didn't recognize sprawling on my rug with their phones. The basement stairs creaked under my feet. That would need to be fixed. I'd told the contractor about it. The basement was worse. They'd moved my carefully organized boxes of kitchenware, the copper molds I'd collected over decades, the vintage cookbooks I'd hunted down in markets from London to Bangkok. Everything was shoved into corners, some boxes torn open, bubble wrap scattered like snow. In the center of the room, my son stood with another man, drilling holes into my wall to mount speakers. Noah. He turned, and for a moment, just a flash, I saw my boy. The one who used to sit on a stool in my restaurant kitchen, swinging his legs and watching me work. The one who'd taste my sauces and tell me, with complete seriousness, whether they needed more salt. The one I'd loved so fiercely it sometimes made my chest ache. But that was 30 years ago. The man in front of me was 42, soft around the middle, with my ex-husband's weak chin and eyes that slid away from mine. "Mom! Hey! When did you— Get out!" The drill whined to a stop. The other man, Brian, I assumed, looked between us nervously. "What?" I said, "Get out. All of you. Now." Noah's face did something complicated. Confusion, then irritation, then a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mom, come on. Don't be dramatic. We're just using the place for a few days. You weren't even here. This is my house." "I know, but— Did I invite you?" "Well, no, but— Did you ask?" His jaw tightened. There it was. Not guilt. Annoyance. "I didn't think I had to. You're always saying how we don't visit enough, how you never see us. Now we're here, and you're mad?" The logic was so twisted, so perfectly designed to make me the villain, that for a moment I couldn't speak. Charlotte appeared at the top of the stairs. "Everything okay down there?" "It's fine," Noah called up. "Just a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding." My voice was steady now. All those years of running kitchens, managing chaos, dealing with entitled customers and temperamental sous chefs, it all came back. You broke into my house. I had the code. Without permission. You've been living here, eating my food, drinking my wine, destroying my things. And now you expect me to cook for your party? Jesus, Mom. He rubbed his face. "It's not that serious. We'll clean up. We just thought you'd be happy to see us. To have family here. Isn't that what you wanted?" And there it was. The knife, slipped between my ribs so smoothly I almost didn't feel it. The implication that I was the one being unreasonable, that my boundaries were the problem, that wanting respect in my own home was somehow selfish. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become this? This man who took without asking, who justified without apologizing, who looked at me now with irritation instead of remorse. "I wanted peace," I said quietly. "I wanted a place that was mine. It still is. No, it isn't. Not with all of you here." Charlotte was fully down the stairs now, and I could hear others gathering above. "Ellen, let's not make this a big thing. It's New Year's Eve. Family should be together. And honestly, we've all been looking forward to your cooking. The kids especially. They never get to eat your food anymore. Because I retired, I wanted to say. Because I spent 4 decades cooking for other people, and I'm done." But I didn't say it. Something in me had gone very quiet and very cold. Noah put down the drill. "Look, we'll talk about this later. After the party. Right now people are hungry and you need a cook. That's not—" He stopped, shrugged. "Would it kill you? 1 meal? For your family?" I looked around the basement at my scattered belongings, my violated space. Upstairs, someone turned up music. I heard glass shatter, followed by laughter. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "I'll think about it." Charlotte brightened immediately. "Oh, that's wonderful. See? I knew you'd—" I walked past her, up the stairs, through the crowd that had somehow doubled since I'd arrived. In the kitchen, someone had started cooking without me. More burnt pans, more mess. The bottle of champagne I'd packed for tonight for my private celebration was open on the counter, half empty. I picked up my overnight bag from where I'd dropped it by the door. No one seemed to notice as I walked out. They were too busy laughing, drinking, celebrating in my house. The cold hit me like a slap. December in the Colorado mountains, and the sun was already sinking behind the peaks. My breath came out in clouds. I stood there for a moment, looking back at the warm light spilling from my windows, listening to the noise of people who'd taken what wasn't theirs and expected me to be grateful. Then I got in my car, started the engine, and drove. The town was 20 minutes away, down a winding mountain road that would have terrified me if I'd been paying attention. But I wasn't. I was thinking about 43 years of kitchens, of burns and cuts and 18-hour days, of missing Noah's baseball games and school plays because someone had to pay the bills after his father left, of building a reputation, a career, a life that was supposed to lead to this, to peace, not to serving ungrateful strangers in my own home. The Crystal Pine Inn sat on Main Street, its Victorian facade lit with white lights. I parked and sat for a moment, watching people pass by through the window, couples holding hands, families with children, everyone dressed for New Year's Eve celebrations. I was 67 years old. I'd cooked for presidents and celebrities. I'd won a James Beard Award. I'd been featured in magazines, interviewed on television, called a genius and an artist. And my own son thought of me as free labor. I got out of the car and walked into the inn. The lobby was warm and smelled like cinnamon and pine. A young woman at the desk looked up with a smile. "Hi, do you have a reservation?" "No," I said, "but I need a room. For tonight." "Let me check." Her fingers flew over the keyboard. "We're pretty full because of the holiday, but yes, we have one room left. Queen bed, mountain view. It's $300 for the night. $300 to sleep in a hotel while strangers partied in the house I'd paid for. The house that had cost me $2 million and represented every sacrifice I'd ever made. I handed her my credit card. While she processed the payment, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Frank Reeves. We'd worked together years ago when I'd renovated my first restaurant. He'd retired up here, said the mountains reminded him of growing up in Montana. The phone rang 3 times. "Ellen Collins, as I live and breathe. Frank, I need a favor. Name it. How do you feel about changing some locks?" There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "This about that mountain property of yours?" "Maybe. When and where?" I told him. He listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I'd always liked about Frank. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "That's cold, Ellen. Real cold." They drank my 2015 Chateau Margaux. "I'll be there at noon tomorrow. Bring my best deadbolts." I hung up and took my room key from the desk clerk. As I turned toward the elevator, I caught my reflection in the lobby mirror. Same short silver hair, same sharp cheekbones, same dark eyes that had intimidated countless line cooks. But something was different. Something around my mouth. Not quite a smile, more like the beginning of one. The hotel room was nothing special. Standard mountain lodge decor, plaid curtains, pine furniture, a landscape painting that could have been anywhere. But it was quiet, and it was mine. I dropped my bag on the bed and stood at the window, looking out at the dark shapes of mountains against the darker sky. My phone buzzed. Noah. "Mom, where did you go? People are asking about dinner." I stared at the message. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just an expectation that I'd come back and fulfill my assigned role. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand and didn't answer. Sleep should have been impossible, but I'd learned long ago how to shut off my mind when needed. Years of grabbing 3-hour naps between lunch and dinner service. I lay down fully clothed and closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, pale winter light was seeping through the curtains. 6:30. My body still kept kitchen hours. I showered, dressed in clean jeans and a sweater, and went downstairs. The inn's breakfast room was nearly empty. Just an elderly couple sharing a newspaper and a businessman typing on his laptop. I poured coffee from the carafe, black and bitter, and sat by the window. My phone showed 7 missed calls from Noah, 3 from Charlotte, and a string of texts that progressed from confused to annoyed to angry. The last one, from Charlotte at 2 in the morning. "This is really childish, Ellen. We're your family." I sipped my coffee and felt nothing. Or rather, I felt the same cold clarity I'd felt yesterday, like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark. At 8, I called the electric company. "Rocky Mountain Power, this is Denise. How can I help you?" "Hi, Denise. I need to request a service interruption for my property." I gave her the address. "I won't be there for the next few days, and I'm concerned about the electrical system. The house is new, and I'd like everything shut off while I have it inspected." "Of course, ma'am. I can schedule that for later this week. Today, please. As soon as possible." There was typing. "Let me see. I have a crew that can be there by 10. Is that acceptable?" "Perfect." The water company was next, then the gas. Each time I was polite, reasonable, concerned about my brand new house and its brand new systems. Each time they assured me they could help right away. Customer service in small mountain towns was refreshingly efficient. At 9, Frank called. "I'm at the hardware store. What kind of locks you want?" "The best you've got. And Frank, the gate too." "You're really doing this." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yes." "Good for you." I heard the smile in his voice. "I'll head up there around noon like we said." "They gonna be there?" "No." I'd been thinking about this all morning, letting the plan crystallize. "They'll go into town for lunch. They went yesterday. Charlotte posted about it on Facebook, some restaurant with mountain views. They'll want to take her parents, show off the area." "You checked her Facebook?" I checked all of them. I had, sitting in bed at dawn with my coffee, scrolling through posts from the last week. My house in every photo. Noah grilling on my deck. Charlotte's sisters in my hot tub. The children opening presents under the tree I'd had delivered and decorated before I'd even seen it myself. Every image tagged with "Chiur family time, Chiur blessed or mountain retreat." Not one mention of whose house it actually was. "Text me when they leave," Frank said. "I'll be ready." I spent the rest of the morning walking through town. It was picturesque in that deliberately quaint way. Ski shops and art galleries, a bookstore with a coffee shop attached, restaurants with names like The Summit and Altitude. Fresh snow from last night dusted everything, and people moved through the streets bundled in expensive outdoor gear. This was supposed to be my town now, my place. I'd imagined becoming a regular at the bookstore, maybe taking a cooking class at the community center just for fun, learning to bake bread without the pressure of perfection, joining a book club, making friends who didn't know or care that I'd once been somebody in the culinary world. Instead, I was hiding in a hotel while my son threw parties in my house. At 11:30, my phone lit up with a post from Charlotte. "Taking the fam to Timber Lodge for lunch. This town is adorable." A photo showed them all piling into 3 cars, bundled in ski jackets, laughing. I texted Frank. "They just left." His response was immediate. "On my way." I waited an hour, then called him. "All done," he said. "Changed the front door, back door, and the door from the garage. New padlock on the gate with a chain that could hold back a tank. Left their stuff on the porch like you asked. Well, most of it. Had to make a few trips. Whole lot of luggage for a family that didn't ask permission to be there. Thank you, Frank. You know they're gonna call the cops." "I know. And the cops are gonna call you." "I know that too." "You got your deed? Proof of ownership?" "In my car, along with the utility bills in my name, the mortgage documents, and the insurance paperwork." He chuckled. "You don't mess around, do you?" "Not anymore." After we hung up, I drove to a late lunch at a small Italian place off Main Street. It was warm and smelled like garlic and basil, and the owner, a woman about my age with flour dusting her apron, brought me fresh bread without being asked. "You're new in town," she said. Not quite a question. "Just moved here, or trying to." She smiled. "It's a good place. People are nice once you get through the tourist season." She paused. "You staying at the Crystal Pine? How did you—" "Small town. And you have that look." "What look?" "Like you're escaping something." She refilled my water glass. "Most people who move here are. That's okay. Mountains are good for that. Fresh starts and all." I almost laughed. Fresh starts. At 67, after 4 decades of work, I shouldn't have needed a fresh start. I should have been settled. But here I was, starting over because my own child couldn't see me as anything more than a resource to be exploited. My phone rang as I was finishing my pasta. Unknown number, local area code. "Ms. Collins? This is Deputy Martinez with the Summit County Sheriff's Office. I'm at your property on Aspen Ridge Road, and there's been a situation reported." "What kind of situation?" "Your son called us. Says he and his family have been locked out of the house. Says you changed the locks without warning and cut off the utilities. He's pretty upset, ma'am. Says his kids are cold and—" "It's my house, Deputy." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry? It's my house, I own it. I have the deed. Would you like me to send you photos of the documentation?" More silence. I could hear voices in the background. Noah's, rising and angry. "Ma'am, is your son—" Did you give him permission to be there? No. And he just moved in? While I was away, yes. Used a gate code he got months ago when he was helping me with contractors. Brought his entire extended family. I arrived last night to find 40 people preparing to have a New Year's party in my house. The deputy's voice changed, became more formal. So, to be clear, your son accessed your property without permission, has been staying there without your consent, and is now claiming you've wrongfully locked him out. That's correct. Hold on, please. I could hear him talking to someone. Noah, probably. His voice too low to make out words. The restaurant owner glanced over, concerned, and I gave her a small smile. When Martinez came back on, he sounded tired. Ms. Collins, your son says this is a family matter, that you'd given him verbal permission months ago. I did not. He says you're just upset about something and being dramatic. Deputy Martinez, I'm a 67-year-old woman who just bought this property with my retirement savings. I have never, at any point, given my son permission to use it. I'd be happy to meet you there with my documentation, but I'm guessing you don't actually need to see it to know who's in the wrong here. A long exhale. No, ma'am, I don't. Legally, this is pretty clear-cut. It's your property. You can deny access to anyone you want, family or not. He paused. Though I gotta say, it's cold up here. Real cold. And there's kids. Are they in danger? Well, no. They got cars. They can leave. Then I don't see the problem. Ms. Collins, Deputy, let me ask you something. If a stranger broke into your house, drank your beer, trashed your kitchen, and then demanded you cook them dinner, what would you do? That's not really... The only difference here is DNA, which apparently makes it okay to disrespect me, take advantage of me, and treat me like hired help in my own home. My voice was still calm, still reasonable, but something steel had entered it. 40 years of dealing with difficult customers, demanding investors, incompetent staff. So no, they may not come back inside. And if they're cold, I suggest they check into a hotel. There's a lovely inn in town. Silence stretched between us. Finally, understood, ma'am. I'll let them know they need to vacate the property. And Ms. Collins, for what it's worth, my mom would have done the same thing. After he hung up, I sat there with the phone in my hand, my pasta going cold in front of me. Through the restaurant window, I could see people walking by, carrying shopping bags, holding children's hands, living their normal lives. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally hitting. I'd done it. Actually done it. Put my foot down in a way I'd never quite managed before. Not with Noah. Not with anyone. The restaurant owner appeared with a glass of red wine I hadn't ordered. On the house, she said quietly. Whatever you're dealing with looks like you could use it. I took it grateful and let the first sip warm my throat. My phone exploded with texts. Noah, Charlotte, Charlotte's mother, even one of her sisters whose number I didn't have saved. How could you do this? It's freezing. The kids are crying. This is cruel. We're your family. What is wrong with you? I deleted them all without responding. Then I blocked their numbers, one by one, watching each name disappear from my screen. The wine was good, rich and complex, with notes of cherry and oak. I savored it slowly, letting my heartbeat return to normal. Through the window, the sun was starting to set behind the mountains, painting the snow pink and gold. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Free. My phone buzzed one more time. Frank. Police just left. Your boy looked mad enough to spit nails. Whole family loaded up and drove off about 10 minutes ago. Saw them heading toward town. Figured you'd want to know. I typed back. Thank you. Then I ordered dessert. Tiramisu, made properly with real mascarpone. And sat there in that warm restaurant, eating slowly, tasting every bite. Outside, night fell over the mountains. And somewhere out there, my son was learning what happens when you take someone for granted one too many times. The lesson was long overdue. I woke on New Year's Day to silence. Not the tense, waiting silence of yesterday, but something deeper, peaceful. I'd slept 10 hours straight, dreamless and complete, and opened my eyes feeling lighter than I had in months. The hotel room was cold. I wrapped myself in the robe hanging in the closet and stood at the window, watching morning light creep across the mountains. Somewhere out there was my house, locked and empty and finally mine again. My phone, still on the nightstand, showed no new messages. The blocked numbers had worked. For the first time in 24 hours, no one was demanding anything from me. I dressed slowly, choosing a soft cashmere sweater the color of burgundy wine, jeans that actually fit instead of the loose chef's pants I'd lived in for decades. Small acts of reclamation. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because she looked different, but because she looked present, alert, alive. Downstairs, the breakfast room was busier than yesterday. Families with children still giddy from New Year's celebrations, couples nursing hangovers over coffee. I filled a plate with fruit and yogurt and found a corner table away from the noise. The restaurant owner from yesterday, I'd learned her name was Maria, had mentioned a farmer's market that ran year-round in the community center parking lot. Even in winter, she'd said. Lots of local honey, preserves, crafts. Good place to meet people. People. The word felt foreign. For so long, my world had been divided into two categories: staff and customers. Even Noah and Charlotte fell somewhere in that binary. People I served, people who expected things from me. The idea of just meeting people with no transaction involved seemed almost radical. I finished breakfast and drove the short distance to the community center. The market was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 20 vendors under white canopy tents, their breath visible in the cold air. But it was charming, real. A woman sold hand-knitted scarves in jewel tones. A man offered carved wooden bowls, the grain of the wood polished to a soft glow. And everywhere, that particular energy of people who'd chosen this life, this mountain town, over whatever they'd left behind. I stopped at a table covered in jars of honey, ranging from pale gold to deep amber. Each one's from a different elevation, the vendor said. She was maybe 40, with sun-weathered skin and kind eyes. Wildflower, clover, pine. The darker ones are from higher up, stronger flavor. I picked up a jar of the darkest honey, held it to the light. I'll take 3, one of each. You know your honey. I know food. The words came out before I could stop them, and I braced for the usual follow-up questions. What do you do? Where do you work? Are you that Ellen Collins? But she just smiled. Then you'll appreciate these. My bees work hard. I paid and moved on, feeling oddly grateful. At the next table, I bought sourdough bread from a baker who explained his starter was 40 years old, passed down from his grandmother. Then goat cheese from a farm 20 miles up the mountain. Smoked trout. Fresh eggs with yolks the color of marigolds. My arms were full when I heard my name. Ellen? I turned. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a fleece vest and wire-rimmed glasses. Then it clicked. Vincent? Vincent Knight. We'd worked together 30 years ago in San Francisco, both sous chefs at an impossible restaurant with a tyrant head chef and a kitchen that felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. We'd bonded over burns and bad shifts and the shared dream of one day running our own places. Oh my God. He was grinning. Ellen Collins. Here, in Colorado. I could say the same about you. I've been here 8 years. Opened a little bistro downtown after I burned out in Seattle. He shook his head, still smiling. But you, I thought you'd be in New York forever. Didn't you have that place in Tribeca? I did. Sold it. Retired. The words still felt strange in my mouth. Retired? You? He laughed, but not unkindly. The Ellen Collins I knew would work until she dropped dead at the stove. The Ellen Collins you knew was an idiot. Something in my tone made his smile fade. His eyes sharpened, taking me in more carefully. You okay? And there it was. The simple question nobody in my family had asked. Are you okay? Not what can you do for me? Not why aren't you cooking? Not when are you coming back? Just concern for me, the person, not the resource. My throat tightened. I'm fine. Just adjusting. He nodded slowly, like he heard everything I wasn't saying. You here for the day or staying? Staying. I bought a place up on Aspen Ridge. Nice area. Real quiet. He shifted the reusable bag slung over his shoulder. Look, I'm grabbing coffee after this. There's a good place across the street. Want to join? I should have said no. I barely knew this man anymore. 3 decades had passed since we'd last seen each other, and people changed. But something in his face, maybe the lack of expectation, maybe just the kindness, made me nod. I'd like that. The coffee shop was called The Grind, and it was everything a mountain coffee shop should be. Exposed brick, mismatched furniture, local art on the walls. We found a table by the window and ordered, and for a few minutes, we just sat there, watching people pass by outside. So, Vincent said finally, what's the real story? What do you mean? Ellen Collins doesn't retire at the height of her career and hide in the mountains unless something happened. He took a sip of his Americano. And you've got that look, the one you used to get after a really bad service. I stared into my latte, watching the foam dissolve. And then, before I could stop myself, I told him, not everything. Not the painful details of showing up to find my house invaded. Not the exact words Charlotte had used. Not the look on Noah's face when I'd asked him to leave. But enough. The broad strokes. The betrayal. The decision. The locks. When I finished, Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Jesus, he said finally. I'm sorry, Ellen. Don't be. I'm not. No? He studied my face. You look pretty angry to me. I am angry, but I'm not sorry. I met his eyes. For the first time in maybe 40 years, I did something purely for myself. Put myself first. And it feels... I searched for the right word. Clean. He nodded slowly. I get that. When I left Seattle, my partners acted like I'd betrayed them. Said I was abandoning the restaurant, the team, the vision. But I was dying there. Literally. I had a heart attack on the line during dinner service. 48 years old, and my body was shutting down. He smiled wryly. Coming here saved my life, even if it meant disappointing people. Do you ever regret it? Not once. He glanced around the coffee shop, at the relaxed pace, the friendly faces. This isn't the life I planned, but it's the life I needed. And some days, that's enough. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his bistro, small, 25 seats, French-inspired but using local ingredients. About learning to ski at 50, about the book club he'd accidentally joined after his divorce, about building a life that was smaller but somehow bigger than what he'd left behind. And I found myself telling him things I hadn't said out loud to anyone, about the loneliness of the last few years, even surrounded by staff and customers, about watching Noah become someone I didn't quite recognize, about the guilt I'd carried for decades, wondering if I'd failed him somehow, worked too much, been absent when it mattered. You didn't fail, Vincent said quietly. Some people just grow up entitled. That's not your fault. He's my son, and he's also a 40-year-old man who broke into your house and expected you to serve him. At some point, that's on him, not you. The words should have felt harsh, but they didn't. They felt true. My phone buzzed on the table. I'd unblocked one number, Frank's, in case he needed to reach me. His text was brief. Drove past your place this morning, all quiet. Gates holding fine. Happy New Year, Ellen. I smiled and tucked the phone away. You're really not going back, Vincent said. Not a question. Not until I'm ready. And maybe not even then. I paused. Is that terrible? To just cut them off? Is it terrible to have boundaries? Feels that way. That's because you've never had them before. He finished his coffee. Look, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your family, but I will say this. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because you're related. And you sure as hell don't owe them your house, your peace, or your sanity. Something in my chest loosened. Permission, maybe. Or just recognition that what I'd done wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? Being here. Today. When I needed someone to tell me I'm not crazy. Vincent smiled. You're not crazy. You're just done being a doormat. There's a difference. He stood, pulling on his coat. Come by the bistro sometime. It's called Sage and Cedar on 3rd Street. I'll cook for you. No expectations, no pressure. Just good food between old friends. I'd like that. At the door, he paused. Ellen? Whatever happens next, with your son, with your house, with all of it, you're going to be okay. You know why? Why? Because for the first time in a long time, you're choosing yourself. And that's not selfish. That's survival. After he left, I sat there for a while longer, watching the street. The market was closing down, vendors packing up their unsold goods. Families walked by with shopping bags. A dog barked somewhere, happy and excited. My phone buzzed again. Not Frank this time. A number I didn't recognize, local area code. I almost didn't answer, then thought better of it. Hello? Ms. Collins? This is Diane Norton from Silver Summit Realty. I hope I'm not bothering you on New Year's. Not at all. Great. I'm actually calling because I heard through the grapevine, and trust me, it's a small grapevine up here, that you might be looking for a property manager. Someone to handle maintenance, emergency repairs, that sort of thing? I sat up straighter. I might be. Wonderful. I've been managing vacation rentals and second homes in the area for 15 years. I'm local, reliable, and I promise I won't let anyone who shouldn't be there pass the gate. There was a smile in her voice. Word travels fast in mountain towns, just so you know. My first instinct was embarrassment. Everyone knew. Everyone was talking. But then I thought of Deputy Martinez saying his mother would have done the same thing. Of Maria giving me free wine. Of Vincent calling me brave. Maybe this town wasn't judging me. Maybe they understood. I'd like to hear more, I said. Perfect. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? I could meet you at the property, take a look around, discuss what you need. Tomorrow works. After we hung up, I gathered my market purchases and walked back to my car. The sun was higher now, the day warming despite the snow. Somewhere, Noah and Charlotte were probably still angry, still telling anyone who'd listen how unreasonable I was being. Charlotte's family was probably calling me names, posting vague Facebook statuses about toxic parents and family betrayal. I didn't care. For the first time in longer than I could remember, their opinion of me didn't matter more than my own. I drove back to the Crystal Pine Inn, carried my food inside, and asked the front desk if they had a room with a kitchenette. We do, the clerk said, but it's a bit more expensive. I'll take it. That night, I cooked in a tiny hotel kitchen. Nothing fancy, just pasta with butter and herbs, the fresh bread toasted, honey drizzled over goat cheese. Simple food, honest food. The kind I'd forgotten how to make somewhere along the way to Michelin stars and magazine covers. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. Outside my window, the mountains stood dark against a sky full of stars. Tomorrow, I'd go back to my house, walk through rooms that were finally empty of everyone but me. Start figuring out what came next. But tonight, I was here, fed and warm and free, and that was enough. More than enough. The gate code still worked. I'd had Frank change everything else, but not that. I pulled up to my property at 2 p.m. Diane Norton's silver SUV already parked outside. She stood by the gate, a woman in her 50s with practical boots and a no-nonsense haircut, talking on her phone. When she saw me, she ended the call and walked over with an extended hand. Ellen, good to meet you in person. Her handshake was firm. No pity in her eyes, no judgment, just professional assessment. Thanks for coming on such short notice. Are you kidding? I've been dying to see inside this place since the renovation finished. The before and after photos were incredible. She gestured toward the house. Ready? I unlocked the gate and we drove up the long driveway. My house came into view. Timber and stone and glass. Nestled among the pines exactly as I'd imagined it. Beautiful. Untouched from the outside. But I knew what waited inside. Diane parked beside me and we walked to the front door. I stood there for a moment, key in hand, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. You okay? Diane asked quietly. I don't know what I'm going to find in there. Want me to go in first? I almost said yes. Almost let someone else face it, deal with it, absorb the first shock of violation. But this was mine. My house, my mess, my reclamation. No, but stay close. The door swung open and the smell hit me first. Not as bad as before. They'd taken the garbage at least, but still that lingering scent of occupancy. Other people's lives lived in my space. The living room was better than I'd feared. They'd attempted to clean, probably in those frantic hours before they left. The pizza boxes were gone, the bottles removed, but the leather sofa had a stain on one cushion that hadn't been there before. Someone had burned a mark into my coffee table, probably setting down a hot pan without thinking. The rug, a hand-woven piece I'd found in Morocco, had a tear along one edge. Diane walked through slowly, making notes on her phone. She didn't comment, just observed. Professional. The kitchen nearly broke me. They'd tried. I could see that. Dishes were washed but stacked haphazardly, still dripping in the drying rack. Someone had wiped down the counters but missed the dried sauce splattered on the backsplash. My cast iron skillet sat on the stove, the seasoning completely destroyed, the surface rough and damaged from whatever they'd cooked and failed to clean properly. But it was the small things that hurt most. The knife block with 2 knives missing, including my Misono, gone. A cabinet door hanging crooked, the hinge broken. My good olive oil, a bottle I'd carried back from Tuscany, $300 and impossible to replace, empty on the counter. I picked up the bottle and stared at it, this silly thing to care about, and felt my eyes burn. They used it all, I said quietly. Probably didn't even taste the difference. Diane came to stand beside me. What did it cost? More than the money. I set the bottle down carefully. It was supposed to be for special occasions, for myself, for when I was ready to celebrate being done with all the noise and pressure and performance. And I gestured helplessly, used it to make scrambled eggs. Write down everything that's damaged or missing, Diane said, her voice gentle but firm. Every single thing. Dates purchased, estimated value. Photos if you have them. You might need it. For what? For whatever comes next. I moved through the rest of the house in a daze. Upstairs, they'd used every bedroom. Beds unmade, towels on the floor, someone's forgotten phone charger still plugged into the wall. In my master suite, the room I hadn't even slept in yet, the bed was rumpled and a water ring marred the surface of my nightstand. They'd slept in my bed, used my bathroom, gone through my things. The closet door was open, and I could see hangers pushed aside where someone had moved my clothes to make room for theirs. A dress I'd bought for my first night here, deep blue silk, elegant and simple, lay crumpled on the closet floor with what looked like a wine stain down the front. I picked it up and held it, this stupid dress I'd never even worn, and something inside me cracked. Not tears. Rage. Pure, clean, clarifying rage. Ellen? Diane was in the doorway, concern written across her face. I want them to know, I said, my voice steady despite the fury coursing through me. I want them to understand exactly what they did. Not the locked doors or the cut utilities. Those are just consequences. I want them to feel what I felt walking into this house yesterday. I want them to know what it's like to have something precious treated like garbage. Diane nodded slowly. What are you thinking? I looked around my violated bedroom, at the evidence of careless invasion, at the thoughtless destruction of things I'd chosen with care and love. I'm thinking I'm going to send them a bill. A bill? For everything. Every damaged item, every missing piece, every single thing they used or broke or took. Market value, replacement cost, at my hourly rate as a professional chef for the meals they expected me to cook. I met Diane's eyes. I want it documented, professional, undeniable, so they can never say I'm being dramatic or unfair. Just honest. That's going to be a lot of money. Good. Diane smiled, sharp and approving. I know a lawyer. She handles property disputes, family conflicts, estate issues. Very good at making sure documentation is airtight. Can you send me her information? Already texting you. We spent the next 2 hours going through the house room by room. Diane took photos, made notes, measured the carpet tear and the table burn. I made a list on my phone, my fingers flying over the screen. Misono UX10 Gyuto knife, 380 Moviel copper sauté pan, damaged, $2.95 Tuscan olive oil, $300 blue silk dress, ruined, $450 Moroccan rug, torn, $2,200 Lodge cast iron skillet, seasoning destroyed, $85 Bordeaux, 2015, Chateau Margaux, 3 bottles, $3,600, on and on. Each item a small wound, a small theft. Together, they added up to something staggering. By the time we finished, the total was just over $19,000. Jesus, Diane breathed, looking at my phone screen. That's what happens when you treat someone's home like a free rental and their belongings like disposables. I saved the document and sent it to myself. I'll have the lawyer draft it properly, but I want them to see this. Every item, every cost, every consequence of their actions. They're going to lose their minds. Let them. We walked back downstairs and I looked around my house, my beautiful, violated, empty house, and felt something settle in my chest. Not peace, not yet, but determination. So, Diane said, what do you need from me? Security cameras? Good ones? At every entrance, the driveway, the gate. If anyone comes back, I want to know. I paused. And I want you to check on the place twice a week. Make sure everything's secure, no damage, no attempts to break in. You're not moving in yet. I looked around at the mess, the stains, the evidence of carelessness everywhere. Not until I've reclaimed it. Really reclaimed it. Right now, it still feels like they're here. Their energy. Their presumption. I shook my head. I need to clean this place top to bottom. Replace what they broke. Sage it, maybe. Make it mine again. I know a great cleaning service. Discreet, thorough, used to working with high-end properties. Send me their information, too. At the door, Diane turned back. Ellen, what you're doing, standing your ground, demanding accountability, it's not easy. A lot of people would just swallow it, make excuses, try to keep the peace. I've kept the peace my whole life. Look where it got me. She smiled. Well, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this exactly right. And if you need anything at all, you call me. Day or night. After she left, I stood alone in my house for the first time since I'd bought it. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, illuminating dust motes in the air. Outside, snow was starting to fall, soft and silent. I walked through each room slowly, saying goodbye to the version of this place I'd imagined. The pristine haven, the untouched sanctuary. That house was gone, violated before I'd ever really had it. But something else could grow here. Something harder, maybe. More fought for. Mine in a way that mattered more than ownership papers. I locked up carefully and drove back to town. The lawyer's office, Janet Reese, attorney at law, was in a converted Victorian house on a quiet side street. I called from the parking lot. Ms. Collins, Diane said you might reach out. Come on up. I've got time now if you're available. Janet Reese was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and an office cluttered with case files and coffee cups. She listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally making notes, her expression neutral but focused. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Okay. First, the good news. You're completely within your rights. This is your property. You never gave permission, and you have every legal justification for what you've done. They have zero recourse. And the bad news? Family law is messy, emotional. Even when the law is on your side, people can make your life difficult. They can harass you, damage your reputation, make scenes. The question is, how far are you willing to go? I thought of my ruined dress, my missing knife, my empty bottle of precious oil. I thought of Charlotte's bright, thoughtless smile. We were hoping you could cook for everyone. I thought of Noah's shrug. Would it kill you? One meal? As far as it takes, I said. Janet smiled. Then let's make sure this bill is bulletproof. Walk me through every item. We spent an hour building the document. Janet asked questions, requested receipts where I had them, looked up replacement costs where I didn't. She was thorough and relentless, and I found myself grateful for her cold precision. This is going to hurt them, she said finally, reviewing the final draft. 19,000 is significant. They hurt me first. I know. But Ellen, and I say this as both a lawyer and someone who's been through her own family shit, you need to be prepared for the fallout. They're going to call you vindictive, cruel, petty. They're going to tell everyone who'll listen that you're punishing them over an innocent mistake. It wasn't innocent. I know, but that won't stop them from framing it that way. She met my eyes. You have to be ready to be the villain in their story. Can you handle that? Could I? I'd spent my whole life trying to be the hero, the provider, the success story, the mother who sacrificed everything. Even when it hurt me, even when it cost me, I'd played that role. Because it was easier than facing what it meant to choose myself. But I was done with easy. Yes, I said. I can handle it. Good. Janet printed the document and slid it across the desk. You can send this yourself, or I can send it on law firm letterhead. The letterhead makes it more official, harder to dismiss. Letterhead. They'll have 30 days to respond. If they refuse to pay, we can pursue it in small claims court. Given the documentation and your clear ownership, you'd almost certainly win. But it'll be public, and it'll be ugly. Let them make it ugly. I'm done protecting their feelings at the expense of my dignity. Janet extended her hand. Then we have a plan. I'll send this out tomorrow morning. Certified mail, signature required. They'll have it by the end of the week. I shook her hand, feeling something like relief wash over me. Action. Concrete, undeniable action. Not just locking doors and cutting utilities, but demanding actual restitution, making them face what they'd done in black and white, with dollar signs attached. Outside, the snow was falling heavier now, covering the street in white. I sat in my car for a moment, engine running, heat slowly filling the space. My phone buzzed. Vincent, how'd it go at the house? I typed back, bad, but I'm handling it. His response came immediately. Proud of you. Dinner at Sage and Cedar tomorrow? My treat. You look like you could use some good food and better company. I smiled despite everything. I'd love that. Driving back to the inn, I passed the Italian restaurant where Maria worked. On impulse, I pulled over and went inside. She was behind the counter, rolling out pasta dough with practiced efficiency. Ellen, twice in 2 days. I'm flattered. I need comfort food, I said. What do you recommend? Bolognese, grandmother's recipe. Takes 4 hours to make properly, and I made a batch this morning. She wiped her hands on her apron. Sit. I'll bring it out. The restaurant was quiet. The post-holiday lull. I sat by the window and watched the snow fall, feeling the adrenaline of the day slowly drain away. My hands were shaking slightly. Aftermath. Maria brought the bolognese herself, along with fresh bread and a glass of red wine I hadn't ordered. On the house again? I asked. You look like you need it again. She sat down across from me. Diane called. Said you're having a rough go of it. Small town. Very small town. And Diane's my cousin. She smiled. You okay? No, but I will be. That's the spirit. She stood to go, then paused. Ellen, for what it's worth, what you're doing takes guts. Don't let anyone tell you different. I ate slowly, savoring the rich, complex flavors of the sauce. Real food. Honest food. The kind that reminded you what mattered. Outside, the mountains disappeared into falling snow. Somewhere out there, Noah and Charlotte were probably receiving the call from Janet's office, learning that I'd hired a lawyer, that consequences were coming. Let them panic. Let them rage. Let them finally understand that I wasn't their servant, their safety net, their convenient resource. I was just Ellen. And from now on, that would be enough. More than enough. It would be everything. The certified mail was delivered on Thursday. I know because Janet called me at 9:15 in the morning to let me know the tracking showed it had been signed for by Charlotte Norton. She'd used her maiden name, I noticed. Now we wait, Janet said. But I didn't have to wait long. By noon, my email inbox, which I'd forgotten to block, contained 17 messages from Noah. The subject lines escalated from, Mom, we need to talk, to This is insane, to, You've gone too far. I didn't open any of them. Just created a folder called Evidence and moved them all there, unread. At 2, Charlotte's mother called the Crystal Pine Inn's main line, asking for my room. The front desk clerk, bless her, told her they couldn't confirm guest information. I heard about it later from the manager, who stopped by my room to make sure I was okay. She sounded pretty upset. He said carefully, used some language I won't repeat. I wanted you to know in case she shows up. Thank you. I appreciate the discretion. We take care of our guests, Miss Collins, especially ones who tip the housekeeping staff as well as you do. After he left, I sat on the bed and stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to read the emails, to know what Noah was saying, how he was framing this. The old Ellen would have absorbed every word, every accusation, every attempt at guilt and manipulation. But I was building a new Ellen, one with boundaries, one who didn't need to defend herself to people who refused to understand. I deleted the email app from my phone entirely. That evening, I met Vincent at Sage and Cedar. The bistro was exactly as I'd imagined, intimate and warm, with exposed brick walls and soft lighting. Maybe 20 tables, all occupied. The smell of roasting garlic and fresh herbs made something in my chest loosen. Vincent met me at the door, wearing a clean apron and a genuine smile. Right on time. Come on, I've got the best table saved for you. He led me to a corner booth with a view of the kitchen. Not the dining room, the kitchen. The pass, where plates went out, where the real work happened. Thought you might appreciate the view, he said. I do. He brought me a glass of wine, a local Pinot Noir, light and earthy, and sat down across from me. How are you holding up? They got the bill today. His eyebrows rose. And they're predictably losing their minds. 17 emails. Phone calls to my hotel. Charlotte's mother apparently called me some creative names. But you're okay? I sipped the wine, considering. I'm better than okay. I'm clear. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. He glanced back at the kitchen, where a young woman was plating something that looked like duck breast. So listen, I have an idea. Feel free to say no. I'm listening. I need a consultant. Someone with your experience and palate to help me revamp the menu for spring. Nothing too demanding. Maybe a few hours a week, just tasting, advising, telling me when I'm being an idiot. He met my eyes. It would be paid work, obviously, and completely on your terms. But I thought, maybe you'd enjoy having something to do. Something that's yours, without all the pressure of running a kitchen. My first instinct was to refuse. I'd retired. I was done with kitchens, done with food as work instead of pleasure. But something made me pause. What made you think of this? Honestly, you look like someone who needs a purpose. Not because you're lost, you're handling your situation better than most people would, but because you're the kind of person who defines herself through doing, not just being. He shrugged. And I'd be getting the benefit of Ellen Collins's expertise without having to pay your full consulting rate. So really, I'm being selfish. I surprised myself by laughing. What's the rate? $50 an hour. 2, maybe 3 hours a week. Flexible schedule. No commitment beyond the season. That's insulting. My consulting rate was $500 an hour in New York. This isn't New York. And you're retired. He grinned. Also, I'm your friend, and I'm offering you free food and wine while you work. That has to count for something. Make it $75 and throw in dinner once a week and you have a deal. Done. He extended his hand across the table and I shook it. When can you start? After I finish handling my family situation. A week, maybe 2. Perfect. Now let me feed you. The meal was extraordinary. Duck breast with cherry gastrique, roasted Brussels sprouts with pancetta, polenta that melted on the tongue. Simple food, perfectly executed. The kind of cooking that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with this profession in the first place. Between courses, Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just weird timing. He showed me the screen, a text from a number he apparently had saved. Heard Ellen Collins is in town. Tell her I'm sorry about her son. Some kids never learn gratitude. Who's that? Frank Reeves. I know Frank. He changed my locks. Vincent's eyes widened. That was Frank? Jesus, this town really is small. He typed a response and set the phone down. He says if you need anything else, security system, cameras, whatever, just call. Everyone's been so kind. The words came out softer than I'd intended. I don't understand why. They don't know me. They know enough. Small mountain towns are funny that way. We look out for our own. And you're one of us now, whether you plan to be or not. He leaned back. Plus, I think a lot of people here have run from something. Bad marriages, toxic jobs, families that didn't appreciate them. They recognize a fellow escapee when they see one. Is that what I am? An escapee? Aren't you? I thought about my house, my locked gates, my itemized bill. I thought about Noah's emails sitting unread in a folder, about Charlotte's mother's angry phone calls, about the story they were probably telling anyone who'd listen. Yes, I said finally. I guess I am. After dinner, Vincent walked me to my car. The temperature had dropped, and our breath fogged in the air. Thank you, I said, for tonight, for the job offer, for being normal. Normal is underrated. He pulled his coat tighter. Hey, Ellen, whatever happens next with your family, and something will happen. They're not going to just accept that bill and move on. Don't back down. You're doing the right thing. How do you know? Because I've seen what happens when people keep accommodating toxic behavior. It doesn't get better. It just gets more entrenched. He touched my shoulder briefly. You're teaching them a boundary. Most people never learn that lesson. You're doing them a favor, even if they can't see it. I drove back to the inn thinking about that. A favor. Was that what this was? Or was it just revenge dressed up in therapeutic language? But no. Revenge would be cruel. Revenge would be excessive. This was proportional. This was consequence. They damaged my property. I'm asking for restitution. They disrespected my boundaries. I'm enforcing them. Simple cause and effect. The fact that it felt satisfying didn't make it wrong. My new hotel room, the one with the kitchenette, was warm and quiet. I made chamomile tea and sat by the window, watching the town settle into night. Lights in windows, smoke from chimneys, normal lives unfolding in normal ways. I could have that. I was having that. Slowly, carefully, but having it. My phone rang. Frank Reeves. Frank? It's late. Sorry to bother you, Ellen, but I thought you should know. Someone tried to get into your property tonight. My blood went cold. What? Security camera caught it. SUV pulled up to the gate around 8. Driver got out, tried the gate code. When it didn't work, tried climbing the fence. Made it about 3 feet before the motion lights came on and scared him off. Did you get a plate number? Better. Got a face? Want me to send you the footage? Please. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed with a video file. I opened it and watched. The SUV was Noah's. I recognized it immediately. And the person climbing the fence, caught in perfect clarity by the motion lights, was my son. He looked terrible, haggard and desperate, his face tight with frustration as he struggled with the chain link. When the lights blazed on, he'd stumbled backward, nearly falling, before scrambling back to his car and speeding away. Ellen? You still there? I'm here. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Distant. You want me to call the sheriff? This is trespassing, cut and dried. Did I? Part of me wanted to. Wanted to document this too. Add it to the growing pile of evidence that I wasn't the villain here. That I was simply defending myself against someone who refused to respect my boundaries. But another part, smaller, quieter, but still there, just felt sad. That was my son on that camera. My baby, who I'd rocked to sleep and nursed through fevers and taught to ride a bike. And he'd been reduced to this, breaking into my property in the dark, desperate and fumbling. How had we gotten here? Ellen? Not yet, I said, but keep the footage. And Frank? Thank you. For everything. Anytime. You need me to stay out there tonight? Keep watch? No, the cameras and lights are enough. If he comes back, we'll have more evidence. After we hung up, I watched the video 3 more times. Each viewing showed me something new. The way Noah looked around before attempting to climb, checking for witnesses. The panic on his face when the lights came on. The speed with which he fled. He was scared. Actually scared. Not of me. Of consequence. Of accountability. Of a world where his actions had actual repercussions instead of just gentle maternal disappointment. Good, I thought. Let him be scared. Let him understand that some lines once crossed can't be uncrossed. I forwarded the video to Janet with a brief message. Additional evidence for the file. Her response came immediately. This strengthens your case considerably. If needed, we can pursue a restraining order. A restraining order. Against my own son. The phrase should have devastated me. Instead, I felt only a strange numbness, like watching something happen to someone else. I set the phone aside and stood at the window, looking out at the dark mountains. Somewhere out there, Noah was probably telling Charlotte about his failed break-in. They were probably strategizing, planning their next move, maybe calling a lawyer of their own. Let them. I was done playing defense. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I listened. "Mom," Noah's voice, rough with exhaustion. "Mom, please, just call me back. We need to talk about this. That bill is insane. We don't have $19,000. My parents are furious. My sisters are saying terrible things about you, and I'm caught in the middle here. I know you're upset. I get it. But this is too far. We're family. Families work things out. They don't do this to each other. Please, just call me. Let's talk like adults." I deleted the voicemail and blocked his number. Then I got dressed, checked out of the Crystal Pine Inn, and drove to my house. Diane's cleaning crew had finished yesterday. Janet had called to confirm everything was documented. The security system was active. The utilities were back on. In my name only, with passwords only I knew. It was time. I punched in the gate code and drove up the driveway. My house stood in the morning light, clean and quiet, and waiting. I sat in the car for a moment, gathering myself. This was it. The real reclamation. Not just locking them out, but moving in. Making this place mine in practice, not just in principle. I got out of the car, grabbed my bags, and walked to the front door. The key turned smoothly in the new lock. The door swung open on oiled hinges. Inside, everything gleamed. The cleaning crew had been thorough. The floors shone. The windows sparkled. The kitchen counters were pristine. They'd even replaced the torn rug and the burned coffee table. Bills already sent to Janet for addition to the tally. I walked through each room slowly, opening windows despite the cold, letting fresh mountain air wash through the space, cleansing it, claiming it. In the master bedroom, I unpacked my bags and hung up my clothes properly this time. The blue dress was gone, ruined beyond repair, but I had others, and I could buy more. The important thing was that this closet, this room, this house, was finally, truly mine. I made the bed with fresh linens from the linen closet, white and crisp and untouched. Then I went downstairs and stood in my kitchen, my beautiful kitchen with its Viking range and marble counters, and I started to cook. Nothing fancy. Just soup, chicken and vegetables, herbs from the farmer's market, homemade stock simmering on the stove. The kind of food that makes a house smell like home. As it cooked, I sat at my kitchen table and looked out at the mountains through the big windows. Snow on the peaks. Pine trees dark against white. The sky that particular shade of blue that only exists at altitude. This was mine. This view. This house. This peace. I'd earned it through 43 years of work, and I'd defended it with clear boundaries and unwavering resolve. And if that made me the villain in someone else's story, so be it. I was the hero in mine. My phone buzzed. "Vincent. Welcome home. Let me know if you need anything." I smiled and typed back, "I'm exactly where I need to be." Outside, a deer crossed through my yard, stepping delicately through the snow. I watched it until it disappeared into the trees, feeling something settled deep in my chest. Not peace yet, not quite, but close. Getting closer. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of waking up in my own bed, drinking coffee on my own deck, watching the mountains change with the light. 3 weeks of working with Vincent twice a week, tasting his new dishes and offering suggestions that he actually valued. 3 weeks of farmers markets and book club meetings at the library and dinners with Maria, who was becoming less of an acquaintance and more of a friend. 3 weeks of silence from Noah. The bill remained unpaid. Janet had sent a follow-up letter, professional and implacable. No response. The deadline was approaching, 23 days left, before we could file in small claims court. "He's hoping you'll back down," Janet said over the phone. Classic tactic. Ignore it and hope it goes away. It's not going away. I know. Just preparing you for the next phase. Court filings are public record. Once we file, anyone can look it up. Friends, neighbors, people in his professional circle. Good. Let them see who he really is. But there were moments, usually late at night, when the house was too quiet, when doubt crept in. Was I being cruel? Was this really about boundaries? Or had I let my hurt curdle into something uglier? Was I punishing Noah for being thoughtless? Or was I punishing him for not being the son I'd imagined? On a Tuesday morning, 3.5 weeks after New Year's Eve, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the window first, a habit I'd developed. A woman stood on my porch, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore scrubs under her winter coat, and her face was tired but kind. I opened the door cautiously, keeping the security chain on. "Can I help you?" "Ms. Collins, I'm Melissa, Noah's—" She stopped, took a breath. "I'm Noah's ex-wife." The world tilted slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" "From before Charlotte. We were married for 3 years, divorced 12 years ago." She held up her hands, showing they were empty. "I know this is weird. I'm not here to cause trouble. I heard what happened, through mutual friends, and I wanted to talk to you." Every instinct screamed to close the door. This was Noah's life, Noah's past, none of my business. But something in Melissa's face, an exhaustion I recognized, a wariness that spoke of hard-won wisdom, made me pause. "How did you find me?" "Small-town gossip. Plus, Noah's been posting about it on Facebook. Vague stuff about family betrayal and ungrateful parents. But people filled in the blanks." She shifted her weight. "Look, I know you don't know me, but I drove 2 hours to get here. Can we talk? 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I should have said no. Should have protected myself, my peace, my carefully constructed boundaries. But curiosity won out. I unchained the door and stepped back. 5 minutes. We sat in my living room, Melissa on the edge of the couch, hands clasped in her lap. She looked around the room, taking in the new rug, the replaced coffee table, the pristine space. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "You have good taste." "Thank you." I sat across from her, waiting. "Okay. Here's the thing." She met my eyes. "I'm a nurse, ER, so I see a lot, and I've gotten pretty good at reading people, at understanding patterns of behavior. And when I heard what Noah did, breaking into your house, expecting you to serve him, all of it, I thought, yeah, that tracks. I don't understand. When we were married, I paid for everything. Rent, groceries, his student loans from a degree he never finished. He had this way of making it seem reasonable, like he was just temporarily down on his luck. And once his big opportunity came through, he'd pay me back." She laughed without humor. The big opportunity never came. And when I finally said I was done, that I wanted a divorce, he told everyone I'd abandoned him, that I was selfish and cold. My chest tightened. What happened? I learned to live with being the villain. And you know what? It was worth it. Because now I'm remarried to someone who actually respects me. I have 2 kids I can actually afford, and I sleep well at night. She leaned forward. "Ms. Collins, Ellen, I'm not telling you this to bash Noah. I'm telling you because I recognize what you're going through. That doubt, that guilt, that voice asking if maybe you're being too harsh. How did you know? Because I felt it too. For years, even after the divorce." She shook her head. "But here's what I learned. People like Noah, they're takers. They're not bad people necessarily. They're just fundamentally unable to see other people as anything but resources. And they're really, really good at making you feel guilty for having boundaries." I sat very still, letting her words sink in. This woman, this stranger who'd driven 2 hours just to tell me I wasn't crazy, wasn't cruel, wasn't wrong. "Why are you here?" I asked quietly. "Really? Because 12 years ago, I wish someone had told me it was okay to stand my ground, that protecting myself wasn't the same as being heartless." She stood, pulling her coat tighter. "And because I saw your face in my mind, saw you sitting in this beautiful house you worked your whole life for, second-guessing yourself because your son can't take responsibility for his actions. And I thought, no, not again. Someone needs to tell her she's doing the right thing. My throat was tight. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me you won't back down. That bill, the boundaries, all of it. Keep them. Because if you don't, 5 years from now, he'll do this again and again, until you're old and exhausted and have nothing left to give. She walked to the door, then turned back. You deserve peace, Ellen, and you're the only one who can protect it. After she left, I sat in the quiet house for a long time. Then I called Janet. File the papers, I said. Tomorrow. I'm done waiting. Are you sure? Completely. The papers were filed on Wednesday. By Thursday evening, Noah called. Not from a blocked number this time. His actual contact, which I'd never deleted, just silenced. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, I answered. Hello, Noah. Silence. Then, his voice, rough and strained. You actually filed? Yes. Mom, this is... Do you understand what this means? Everyone will see. My boss, Charlotte's family, everyone
Our
will
friends.
know. Good. Good? His voice rose. You want to humiliate me? That's what this is about? No. This is about consequences. You damaged my property. I'm asking for restitution. That's not humiliation. That's accountability. It was an accident. We didn't mean to. You broke into my house without permission, Noah. Used my things without asking. Expected me to cook for your party like I was the hired help. And when I set boundaries, you tried to break in again. My voice was steady, cold. None of that was an accident. It was entitlement. And I'm done enabling it. I'm your son. And I'm your mother. Not your servant. Not your bank. Not your backup plan. Your mother. Who deserves respect. There was a long pause. Then quietly, what do you want from me? I want you to pay what you owe. And I want you to understand why you owe it. $19,000 is the value of what you destroyed and used. I have receipts. I have photos. I have documentation for every single item. I stood, walking to the window. Outside, snow was falling again, soft and peaceful. You can pay it in installments if you need to. Janet can work out a payment plan. But you will pay it, Noah, one way or another. And if I do, will you forgive me? Will things go back to normal? The question hung in the air. The old Ellen would have said yes immediately. Would have been so grateful for contrition, real or performed, that she'd have accepted any crumb of reconciliation. But I wasn't the old Ellen anymore. I don't know, I said honestly. Forgiveness isn't a transaction. You can't buy it by settling a debt. And normal, whatever that was, is gone. You destroyed it when you treated my home like a free vacation rental and me like unpaid staff. So what then? You just cut me off forever? I'm not cutting you off. I'm just not letting you in until you prove you understand what you did wrong. Really understand, not just apologize because it's convenient. I watched a rabbit hop across my yard, small and quick. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be built on respect. Mutual respect. Not this pattern where I give and you take, and I'm supposed to be grateful you're in my life at all. Silence stretched between us. Then, his voice very small, I didn't think you'd actually do it. Lock me out, sue me, all of it. I thought you'd cave. I know you did. That's the problem. Charlotte says, I don't care what Charlotte says. She's not my child. You are, and I love you enough to hold you accountable, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Another long silence. Then, I need to go. Okay, but Mom, I'll think about what you said. About the payment plan and everything else. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. But it was something. A crack in the armor of his certainty. His righteousness. The first hint that maybe, possibly, he was beginning to understand. That's all I ask, I said quietly. After we hung up, I stood at the window for a long time, watching the snow fall. My reflection stared back at me, silver-haired and straight-backed, alone in my beautiful house, but not lonely, not anymore. The next morning, I started my first official day as Vincent's consultant. He'd asked me to come in early before the restaurant opened to taste the new spring menu he'd been developing. Be brutal, he said. setting 3 plates in front of me. That's what I'm paying you for. I tasted each dish slowly, methodically. Asparagus risotto with lemon and mint, pan-seared trout with brown butter and capers, strawberry panna cotta with balsamic reduction. The risotto needs more salt and less lemon, I said. The trout is perfect. The panna cotta, I took another bite. The balsamic is overpowering the strawberries. Use less or switch to a lighter vinegar. Maybe champagne. Vincent scribbled notes, grinning. This is exactly what I needed. Fresh eyes, honest feedback. You're worth every penny. You're paying me $75 an hour. I'm barely worth that. You're worth 10 times that, and we both know it. He took the plates back to the kitchen. Coffee? Please. We sat in the empty dining room, morning light streaming through the windows. Outside, the town was waking up. Shop owners unlocking doors, early risers heading to the gym, normal life unfolding in normal ways. How are you doing? Vincent asked. Really? Better. Noah called last night. And we talked. Really talked. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. I sipped my coffee. He's thinking about the payment plan. Hasn't agreed yet, but he's thinking. That's progress. Maybe. Or maybe he's just stalling. I shrugged. Either way, I'm okay. The outcome doesn't change what I did or why I did it. Good. That's the right attitude. He leaned back. You know what I think? I think you're going to be just fine. Better than fine. This thing you're building here, the house, the friendships, the work, it's real. It's yours. Nobody can take it from you. Not even my son. Especially not your son. I smiled, feeling it reach my eyes. Thank you, Vincent. For the job, for the friendship, for all of it. Thank you for taking a chance on a mediocre bistro in the middle of nowhere. It's not mediocre, and this isn't nowhere. I looked around the restaurant, at the care Vincent had put into every detail. This is somewhere. Somewhere good. That afternoon, I joined Maria's book club at the library. 8 women ranging from their 40s to their 70s, sitting in a circle discussing a novel about second chances and new beginnings. I listened more than I talked, but when they asked my opinion, I gave it honestly. Afterward, Maria pulled me aside. You fit in here, you know. With us. With the town. I'm starting to feel that way. Good. Because we're keeping you. She smiled. Friday night dinner at my place, 6 o'clock. Bring wine. I'll be there. That evening, I cooked in my kitchen. Really cooked. For the pure joy of it. Handmade pasta with sage butter. A simple salad with greens from the farmer's market. Bread that I'd kneaded myself that morning. I set the table for one, lit candles, poured wine into a good glass, and I ate slowly, savoring every bite, looking out at my mountains as the sun set behind them. My phone buzzed. Janet. Payment plan proposal just came through from Noah's lawyer. 12 monthly installments starting next week. Want me to review and send you the details? I typed back, yes, thank you. Then I set the phone aside and returned to my dinner. 12 months. Noah would be in my life, at least tangentially, for 12 more months. Maybe that would lead to reconciliation. Maybe it would lead nowhere. Maybe, eventually, we'd find a relationship built on respect instead of obligation. Or maybe we wouldn't. And I was learning to be okay with that uncertainty. Learning that I could love someone and still protect myself from them. That I could hope for change without sacrificing my peace while waiting for it. The pasta was perfect. Tender and rich. The sage butter nutty and complex. I'd taught myself well over all those years in professional kitchens. Now I was finally cooking for the person who mattered most. Me. After dinner, I sat on my deck wrapped in a blanket, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. The air was cold and clean, scented with pine and snow. Somewhere in the forest, an owl called. The world felt vast and quiet and full of possibility. My phone lit up one more time. Vincent. Restaurant was packed tonight. Had to turn away walk-ins. Your menu suggestions are working. Thank you. I smiled and typed back. Told you the balsamic was too strong. His response made me laugh. You're never letting me forget that, are you? Never. I tucked the phone away and pulled the blanket tighter. breathing in the mountain air. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in my own bed, drink coffee on my own deck, spend another day building this new life. I'd work with Vincent, maybe have lunch with Maria, definitely stop by the farmer's market for fresh eggs. I'd live, not the life I'd planned, not the retirement I'd imagined, with grateful children visiting and Norman Rockwell holidays and everyone finally appreciating the sacrifices I'd made, but a real life, an honest one. A life where my boundaries were respected, my contributions valued, my presence wanted rather than expected. A life where I was enough, all by myself. The owl called again, closer this time. I closed my eyes and listened to the forest settling into night. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, not the exhaustion of surrender, but the deep, bone-settling peace of knowing I'd chosen myself, protected myself, valued myself enough to demand that others do the same. It had cost me. It might still cost me, but sitting here on my deck, in my house, in my life, I knew with absolute certainty it was worth it. Every locked door, every documented dollar, every difficult boundary, worth it. I opened my eyes to stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet, infinite and beautiful and completely indifferent to human drama. The mountains stood dark against the horizon, ancient and implacable, and I sat among them, Ellen Collins, 67 years old, retired chef, imperfect mother, complicated woman, and I was home. Finally, truly home. Not just in a house, but in myself. And that, I thought, was the best revenge of all. Not punishment, not cruelty, not even justice, though that had its place. Just this, living well, living free, living honestly. The rest would sort itself out. Or it wouldn't. Either way, I'd be okay. Better than okay. I'd be me. And after 43 years of being everything to everyone else, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.